Today we will be looking at float loading. Storm has done a lot of float loading travelling. He's only a year old, but before you start your float loading you need to be able to do all your groundwork first. First thing I want to do is just lunge him from A to B, from left to right. So I start with the tailgate up and with a certain distance between myself and the tailgate. What I want to be able to do is lunge him from A to B and him not bump into me. If he does bump into me, give him a jab with your hand just in the side of the stomach there. Not too hard that you get kicked. The idea is that the horse doesn't bump into you and you push the horse away from you when you smack him in the side of the girth area there. So when he's in A, you lunge him through to B, and then he can have a rest in B. As he gets better at it, we make the gap slightly smaller and smaller, so the gap between myself and the tailgate is closer, and he's still got to calmly walk between myself and the trailer without bumping into me. In the future, we will document problem float loaders. Today we're just using Storm to go through the procedure that you would with a problem float loader. But with the problem float loader, you're obviously going to have issues as you go along, and you're going to have to correct them as you go along, but we will document that with the next problem float loader that we do. The next step is I will lower the tailgate down, go back to the same starting point, distance between myself and the trailer, and push him from A to B, lunging from A to B without him bumping into me. Right when he comes across the tailgate in a second, this is where I make a mistake, and this is really critical with a bigger horse. I didn't push him out far enough and he comes across and into me. Right, I'm going to make that mistake again, go in the other direction. I don't push him out far enough. He comes across and pushes me away. Now to correct that, I need to get him way out the side of the trailer as far as I can and have him straight across the trailer, and then ask him to come forward. Even now it was a little bit crooked, but a lot better than before, so I still need to push him out down the side of the trailer a little bit more and get him coming across the tailgate straighter rather than on a diagonal. Now as I push him over the other side here, you'll see as he comes across on a diagonal. Now this is very important to avoid when you're working with a bigger horse, otherwise you will get knocked over. So what I've got to do now is push him down as far as I can to the front of the trailer, get quadrant 4 around, get quadrant 2 straight with the trailer, and getting him entering the trailer at the top left corner. As he comes up the top left corner, that's where I want him to enter, but he exits at the bottom right corner. To counteract that, I need to move along with him as he comes across the trailer. And what I mean by move along with him is I can put my feet at the bottom left corner. As he comes across the ramp, I can move sideways to the bottom right corner, so he goes directly across and doesn't bump into me. Now what we're going to do is, we've been working with C and D backwards and forth between C and D. We're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do from A to B and B to A. Right, Storm is a little bit keen to get on the float, so what we're going to do is take this opportunity just to show you how to teach the horse to come off the float. He's still a little bit sometimes not so good at coming off the float. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to wiggle the rope like I would be asking him to go backwards, as in the first step of the groundwork. Now I don't want to bend his neck, I want to try to keep his neck straight. Now he's bending his neck on his own accord. Now I'm just going to keep asking, and then when he starts to move back, then I'm going to release. Now, if I can't get him to come back any further than what he was, what you're going to have to do is go into the float and just push on his chest to come backwards. I do that after I've asked him to come back, and then do this a few times and he'll pick up on that I want him to come back from the rope, and then I'd start teaching him to come back from the leg. Just pulling on his back leg slightly and asking him to come out on the inside of the back leg. What I'm going to do now is just push Storm around to the side of where a naughty horse might come around to the side, and then I'm going to show you how to straighten him up by pushing quadrant 4 around and then asking him to come onto the float. So we'll move him around a little bit. He doesn't quite understand because he just wants to go on the float. So now I'm going to straighten him up from there. Move him around, quadrant 4, bring quadrant 4 around. Gone too far, so now I ask him to come back the other way. Quadrant 4 around, lunge around, quadrant 4, then lunge onto the float. and push quadrant 5. Storm needs to work on getting out of the float, so I'm just going to go into the float and wiggle the rope and just ask him to go back out. Storm was float loaded and travelled with his mum within the first couple of weeks of birth, and pretty much had a trip down the road maybe once a week, twice a week, all the way up to a year old. So he has done a lot of floating. So we'll just do one more quick little demonstration. What we're going to do with Storm here is I'm just going to try put him into a position that a naughty horse would do. Just pushing quadrant 4 around, pushing quadrant 2 around, then asking quadrant 4 around, then opening up the float for him to go on, and then pushing quadrant 5 across. Okay, that brings us to an end for this short tutorial on float loading. Thank you for watching.